Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to 11:11 celebration this morning. It's good to see you all here. It's nice to see some of you back that I haven't seen in a while, and then I've noticed we're missing a lot of folks that were here last week, and I was telling someone, I think I was telling Bronson, did Bronson already left? I think I made him feel guilty. Bronson, did you already leave? He'll be back. Maybe he got scared. I basically said that from now on, I'm going to start telling you that you need so many attendances of church each month, or just going to start feeling the gates of hell start to ring up and kind of start lapping at your heels. Don't want to introduce a whole lot of guilt, but maybe we just need a little more guilt, to get back in here on a regular basis. I'm kidding, of course. Kind of kidding, but not really. Kind of. So here's some announcements that I especially want you to make. First of all, we got these name tags. Some of y'all noticed these wonderful name tags that we've started using, and I hope that you'll start filling them out, putting your name on it, because we really do want to get to know each other and the folks that are sitting beside us, and that'll help to encourage that. So we hope you'll just start doing that, make sort of a culture of kind of hospitality and friendliness and familiarity with one another. And then the other announcements are that you'll notice that next Sunday is our conclusion to our stewardship campaign. And so we'll be celebrating out here. DeAndrea is going to say a word about that in a second, about the doves that are sitting in the chair. But we'll be celebrating out in the courtyard. There'll be music from band, and there'll be food and all sorts of celebration as we celebrate our community and all of our generosity and such. The other thing is that we have second Tuesday, we have drumming. Mara, oh, I'm so sorry. She took what I said to heart. She didn't like that at all. So we have wishful thinking on Monday, but we have our first drum happening on Tuesday. I think we had about 8 or 9 people there this last time, and we'll get anywhere from 8 to 10 or 12. So we hope you can join us. It's a lot of fun. First timers, regulars, and we always have extra drums around. And it always happens in here. And Daryl is always one of the ones who facilitates it. Daryl's back here. And then Austin, y'all know Austin as well, our sound and AV guy here at the church. I think that's it. Am I missing something else, Sharm? Tonight, a wonderful concert that the main church sanctuary choir is putting on for All Saints. Today is All Saints Day, and they're putting on a beautiful concert tonight. Be very beautiful music, inspirational with some musical instruments as well, brass, I believe. So if you can come back for that starts, I think, at 7 o'clock. So come on back for that as well. It's good to see everybody here. Let's begin our worship.
inside. Saying hallelujah, let music be your guide. So I'm gonna pick myself up off the ground. I'm gonna get up and sing. I'm gonna sing a joyous song. I'm gonna sing hallelujah for this love I feel inside. I'm gonna sing hallelujah, let music be your guide. Oh, your guide. Oh yeah, I'm gonna sing hallelujah, 'cause I'm grateful. I'm gonna sing. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I wanna sing all night long. All right, all right. Oh yeah, all right, all right, all right. Got this feeling that music brings. All right, come on and sing it. All right, come on and sing it. Oh yeah, come on and sing it. Oh yeah, come on and sing. Oh yeah, come on and sing. I said I'm so thankful for this feeling. Oh, that music. Oh, that music brings.
Oh, I'm going to invite Bill to come up and DeAndrea both to come on up here. Bill McMullen, if you come on up as well. And boy, wasn't that nice. Yeah. So y'all know that, y'all just know that just set it off. We're going to be in here for a couple of hours, all right? You okay? You're all good with that? She might do a reprisal of that just to kind of keep us alive and awake and everything. Bill, why don't you go ahead and start? Wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Doesn't matter. Ours is not a... Here we go.
So today is All Saints Day, as Tom mentioned. It's a day where we recognize that community is vitally important to not just the way in which we interact with each other, but also to our faith and the way in which we live within the world and we give back to one another. And so you'll find these doves sitting on your seat, and you are invited to list on the dove the saints, both past, those who have lived and now have died, and those who are still living, who have touched your heart, who have transformed your life, and who have left this world a very, very different place if they have died, but who are also changing the world during this time if they are still alive. During the song, Be Here Now, before our Kairos time, you'll be invited to bring your dove forward or take it to the back, to the basket that is back there, and place your dove in the basket. And then next week, during Commitment Sunday, all of our doves will be placed in the garden on metal trees as a representation of the ways in which the saints both live on and live amongst us. So know that a saint is an ordinary person who lives among us. It doesn't have to be someone who has done grandiose acts or has gained a lot of attention through the media or through history. It could be someone surprisingly just like me and you, who have simply held the hand of another who has encouraged and who has been present in our lives and has changed us. So I hope that you will take a minute to fill these out and to remember on this day and to celebrate those who mean so much to us. May we pray. O Holy One, as we gather in this time, we come remembering and celebrating, both past and present, those who have made a tremendous difference in our life and in our world, and those who are changing our world even in this very moment. So as your presence is made known here to us, may we remember, celebrate, and honor in all that we do, the ways in which we have not become who we are on our own, and how we now must carry the legacy and join with others to change this world, to offer peace, to offer love, and to be the bearers of hope. We pray these things in the name of the one in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen.
Can I invite all you fine people to stand and sing with us now? And if you have an offering, this is a perfect time to bring it up to the table. For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the sky, for the love which from above over and around us lies, over and around us lies. Yeah. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our joyful hymn of praise. Verse 2 now. For the joy of human love, brother, sister, parent, child, friends on earth and friends above, for our gentle thoughts and mine, for our gentle thoughts and mine. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our joyful hymn of praise. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our joyful hymn of praise. Well done. Take a moment and offer one another a sign of peace, would you please?
So we are in the midst of our stewardship campaign, which ends next week. Several folks have come up and talked about it from Sunday to Sunday in the last couple of Sundays. I am standing in for Tamara, Lindsay, and Don Rose, who had to be at another church this morning because of a last-minute situation that came up this middle of the week. So I'm speaking on their behalf, and they'll speak next week at the end. And I thought of this poem, which I'd like to read, a beautiful Mary Oliver poem, and I will read it, and then maybe just share a quick thought with you. Why should I not sit every morning of my life on the hillside, looking into the shining world? Because properly attended to, delight, as well as havoc, is suggestion. Can one be passionate about the just, the ideal, the sublime, and the holy, and yet commit to no effort in its cause? I don't think so. All summations have a beginning. All effect has a story. All kindness begins with the sown seed. Thought buds towards radiance. The gospel of light is the crossroads of indolence or action. Be ignited or be gone. So for me, what 1111 has meant for me over the number of years that I've been involved, both originally with the band and with Charles Gaby, and then with taking supervision of it myself and working with Sharm and Brad now, what it has meant for me is as a place where my soul, personally, where my soul can be cultivated. Now I have to balance actually being leader at the same time as longing for those cultivation that I get out of this experience, out of this reality that we call, this community we call 1111. But there is this aspect of, which I'll speak to a little bit more during the message, of paying attention, of being in community, which is more than sitting. It's also not simply doing. It's a way of being that inspires. And if we're not inspired, then something is probably amiss. Something is probably a little disconnected. But what we find in here clearly is distinctive, and so that's why so many of us will be here from Sunday to Sunday to Sunday, is because it does speak to us in some deep and perhaps mysterious, even unspecified way. And yet we find ourselves moved and inspired by the opportunity of this community. So I resonate with her words. Why shouldn't we look out on the hillside? Why shouldn't we attend to the life that we live? Whether what we're doing is for delight or for havoc, it is always, always, always a suggestion. And the invitation is always, always to be ignited. While the band is playing, I invite you to take a moment and write your name, the name of the person you were thinking of on that dove, and there'll be a basket at the back. And did we have a basket up here at the front? And you can put it on the table or put it at the back, but I just invite you to feel comfortable. It's a long, beautiful, meditative song, and I invite you just to move and then come back to your seats.
Let your mind get weary and confused. You will be still. Don't try. Don't let your heart get heavy, child, inside you. There's a strength that lies. That lies. Don't let your soul get lonely, child. It's only time it will go by. Don't look for love in faces, places. It's in you, that's where you'll find kindness. Now not to lose faith in you. Don't put your trust in walls, 'cause walls will only crush you when they fall. They fall.
And so, Doxie, would you help us a little with some more soft strings while we continue this quiet time, this Kairos minute, this moment between the first and last moments that we've just had? We're still thinking about the communion of saints. And so go ahead and close your eyes if that helps you, and get straight in your chair so that you might have plenty of room for your breath. Find a relaxing pattern to your breathing. It is true that many people pass through our lives. Some, in fact, just pass through. Some come and stay for a while. Others are with us for a long time, but among them all are people who leave footprints on our hearts. And so maybe now, as we hear the quiet tones of music, we invite the memory of one person, maybe the person whose name you wrote, of one person to your consciousness. Continue your steady breathing and think about that person. Every Sunday we share our life breath together, breathing in unison, in harmony, recognizing the breath, the spirit that joins us. And we are also joined with those who are far away from us or who've gone from this life. Indeed, we celebrate the communion of saints. Amen.
There are 3 readings today from Exodus in the Old Testament, Luke, the Gospel of St. Luke, and the Church of Paul to the letter of Paul to the Church at Rome. Hear these readings. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your manservant or your maidservant, or your cattle, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. He said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, what you will wear on your body. Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? If you're not able to do a small thing such as this, why do you worry about the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. Instead, strive for the kingdom of God, and the richness of life will be given you as well. The commandments: you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word: love your neighbor as yourself.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. So we're at the end of our series on the Ten Commandments. We're also thinking about All Saints' Day, and it feels like in our culture we do need Sabbath, doesn't it? I mean, it does feel like Sabbath is an important thing, and Sabbath originally meant that beginning on Friday evening through for the Jewish community on Friday evening through Saturday evening. And then Sunday, of course, was not part of the Sabbath. But for us, for the Christian church, we adopted Sunday. And, of course, now with Cowboys playing in 2 hours and football games and baseball games and soccer games and whatnot being played on Sundays as well, I mean, it's all up for grabs. But there does seem to be this need for Sabbath. And I hesitate to, I think being here is such a significant and important thing to do, in the sense that it is also, for me, worship is also, as I've mentioned before, it's rehearsal, it's practice, it's kind of centering ourselves and orienting ourselves with God, but in community with one another, and practicing what that means to be in community in the world. So it's important, and yet I look out and I'm glad to see a lot of folks just dressed casually, because I hate for us to have to get all busy getting ready and all dressed up and hair and everything, and it's just more work, and sometimes we'll wake up and go, I don't really want to do that today, I'm staying home. And I'd love for you just to come in your pajamas, your shorts, throw your flip-flops on. I mean, maybe I need to start doing that, except for my legs. I don't want anybody looking at my legs. But other than that, maybe I just need to start coming as casual as possible so that you start feeling that way. Although, as I walked around with a tie today, I thought, feels kind of nice, just for me, because I never wear a tie. So I thought, I'm going to set it apart a little bit. But have you noticed, I mean, with our culture, which is so tech heavy now, right? It's so tech saturated, and we all have smartphones, or most of us have smartphones, and it's very easy to get connected to that. I thought about even giving everybody just a moment, any of you who are interested in this kind of thing. Every now and then I do notice a couple of our band members, as I get home, I'm looking down and I see 11:15, 11:30, 11:45, someone would have tweeted something from the band, and I'm thinking, how did you do that, during this thing? And so I just wanted to give everybody a chance, if you wanted to get on your phone right now, very quick, you can take and get on there and tweet. And I'm at 1111 First United Methodist Church. Great music. Preacher about to start. This is going to take a while. Hashtag snap. So I started looking at all these things. You've seen these things too. I bought online. I succumbed to the pressure. I wanted to have a chance to sort of get a little more centered, right? I've been wanting that forever. So about 6 months ago, I bought this pack of cards, this deck of cards called Mindfulness on the Go. And it's a beautiful deck of cards, but I hadn't opened it until about a couple of days ago because it just bothered me. You know, I mean, it sounds fascinating because I am busy. We're all busy. And I thought, well, yeah, if we could just have a little mindfulness on the go. But then it started sounding like paying attention while you're not. It's kind of what it started feeling like. And so I just didn't want to open it up. And then I started noticing we have all these other things, you know, and I've got them at home too. Maybe you have them. Yoga for those who don't have time for yoga. How to Be Happy All the Time in Just 3 Minutes a Day. That's another great book. The 1 Minute Manager. Some of y'all might have seen that one. The 10-minute workout. I even saw one that says just 3 minutes a day exercise and will change your life. And I'm thinking, really? How to Get More Out of a Faster, Shorter Walk. I like that one. My favorite one I came across the other day, like 3 days ago, I saw this one. The 10-minute Bible Hour. Now, I just looked at it because I was trying to figure out, how did this guy figure out how to transcend time? You know, how to just transcend time and space. I don't like the content at all, but the idea, the 10-minute hour, I think that's interesting. So what is it about Sabbath? Sabbath has been a part of culture for generations, for centuries and centuries. It's been a part of religious culture for the Judeo-Christian faith. In the Jewish background, the Sabbath was very much a part of regulating commerce in a sense, as well as in connecting people back with God, at least once a week. Of course, the creation story was a big impetus for that understanding, as God created in 6 days and then on the seventh day rested, which I think is always a limited way of seeing it, because I'm always more interested in what did God do on the eighth day? You know, on the eighth day of creation, what happens? But Sabbath became an important part of identifying culture. Christian culture, Jewish culture in particular, and setting it apart from the rest of culture, which was very much oriented around power and oriented around acquisition and imperialism. And so this was a way of setting life apart from that reality. And it continues to be an option for that. Walter Brueggemann, who wrote a great book called Sabbath as Resistance, a very small little book that he published 2 years ago. In it, he says, Sabbath, if for no other reason, is important because it reminds us that we are set apart from a world that is rooted in consumerism, in destruction, in oppression, and injustice. In fact, if you look at our text, and if you look at Jesus' life, what got him in so much trouble was that he began to resist Sabbath because it had become an institutional practice of power and not a chance or an opportunity for building community or for attending to one another. And so he healed on the Sabbath. He taught on the Sabbath. He invited those who typically weren't welcome into the temple area on the Sabbath. He continued to resist and to transform and reframe what the Sabbath was intended. And his famous line, people were not created for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was created for people. So how do we practice it today in a culture that is saturated with consumerism? In a culture that's really oriented, as Martin Marty wrote a book recently that I haven't read yet, but it's on my desk, The Market as God. Because market has become the primary motivation for life. It's become the primary impetus for all that we do. How do we begin to explore Sabbath as a part of that? As resistance even. Now, I'm all for rest. I need a lot of it. I don't get near enough. How many of you woke up this morning an hour early? How many? I woke up 4 hours early. I was so anxious about waking up early, I woke up earlier. I looked up and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. It was actually 5 o'clock, but it was 4 o'clock because I hadn't turned my clock back yet. So I mean, I woke up early and I'm sitting there trying to figure out what time it was, and I was up for an hour and a half, finally fell asleep again. But I love rest. Rest is important. Science says it. You need rest. You need so many hours a day of rest. You need rest during the week. We have a culture that spends 50, 60 hours a week. That's a pretty good average work week for a lot of people. In Europe, they average about 35 hours a work week. So we have an orientation around production and busyness, and we're even busy with our busyness, and we're not always sure why. And yet we live in this kind of reality. There's a wonderful writer, a social psychologist by the name of Ellen Langer. Do you know that name? I thought you might. Todd here is a social psychologist and teaches at college, and I thought maybe you know her name. Fascinating author. She was coming up with studies that talked about mindfulness before mindfulness was a thing. Now mindfulness is everywhere. Mindfulness on the job, mindfulness at work, mindfulness in prayer. We talk about being present in here and being mindful. And it occurred to me after listening and watching one of her TED Talks and then listening to some of her interviews and reading one of her books, it occurred to me, we really don't know what mindfulness is. We act like mindfulness is sort of a restful presence, but the reality is you can't be present. You can't be present because present is not here. It's gone. It's come, it's gone, it's come, it's gone. Instead, what happens is we end up living most of our lives, according to Ellen Langer, we live most of our lives in a state of mindlessness. Now, that's a little bit difficult to swallow. But we have this reality that we live kind of without really thinking about what we're doing. We don't spend a lot of time reflecting on what we're doing, or reflecting on our encounter, or reflecting how we're about to approach a moment, or reflecting on why we do the same thing over and over, like Paul the Apostle, who echoes so much of our own human nature when he said in the New Testament, I think it was in Romans, when he said, why is it that I don't do what I ought to do, and I'm always doing what I ought not do? I can't get it straight. Well, it's because we're mindless. Most of us live in a mindless state. Most of our culture exists in a mindless state. All you have to do is just listen to the news. And I'm not saying the news is an imbecilic kind of thing. What I'm saying is the news never questions itself. And those who are being interviewed never question themselves. They approach everything from the standpoint of a market. How do I present the best image? How do I present the best take on this or the best spin? We're just a mindless, largely mindless society. So when somebody says something about, yeah, I think there's white supremacy, I think that white supremacy is a real issue in our culture today. I think it's a real problem. There are other people who suddenly just repel immediately from that. And then there are people who jump right on that bandwagon as quickly as possible. The Me Too movement that's going on, because there is this swell of women coming out about having experienced sexual harassment. And then there's this swell of men who are confessing in general for being men. And I'm not denying any of that. But we approach it mindlessly. Ellen Langer says most of the reason why we have problems in our society, why we have repetitious patterns that continue on and on and on, is because most of us live mindlessly. We operate out of echo chambers. We operate out of affiliative groups that sort of share the same thinking that we have. We operate, because our brain is designed to, we operate out of past behavior and past interpretation and understanding. It's so hard to approach something new. Sabbath is about approaching something new. Sabbath is about mindfulness. Now, here's what Ellen says about this. It was interesting. She did these experiments, and you might remember these, and you can even help me if I forget a few details. But she did this one great experiment where she took two groups, and she told them, she said, now, one of you, both groups, you're going to be reading jokes. That's your job. That's all you got to do, is you're just got to be reading jokes and reading comics and stuff. So one group, she set aside and said, we're going to pay you to read these jokes. And the other group was just told, they're just going to read jokes. Well, guess what happened? The group that was reading jokes for pay, after a while, wanted more money. They started thinking the jokes weren't funny enough. They started wanting more money for the jokes and more jokes. The group that was reading jokes just for the fun of it was having a great time. And they were just having fun playing with jokes. She did several studies like this where she worked with chambermaids who were busy moving about doing their job, and they spent a lot of time, this was a study done in England, and they were walking and taking care of household chores and whatnot, moving all about the place, but complaining that they never had time to exercise. She simply told them to see their work as exercise. And they began to lose weight, to find more energy, to have more fun at their job. She took 80-year-olds and she inserted them into a retreat facility and said, now this program we're going to introduce to you is an amazing program that actually, if you'll participate, and it's a lot of fun, you will actually start to feel younger. In fact, you'll look younger. This was when 80 was 80, right? Now 80 is the new 60, right? So, but this was back about 25, 30 years ago. Guess what happened? Of course, they started feeling more vital. They started feeling younger. But the odd thing is that when people came and visited them during that, just random people that were part of the experiment, they actually perceived this group of men to be 15 to 20 years younger than they were. You're saying, nah. Or maybe you're saying placebo. It's just a placebo. And this is what's interesting. Ellen says this. She said, where did it come? Where did we get to this place where we talk about placebo effect as being a negative thing? It's our body's unique drug. It's our body's pharmacology. She said, change the language you associate with something, and you begin to change the way you see that something. She said that mindfulness is not meditating. She said, in fact, meditating is getting ready for mindfulness. Mindfulness is learning to notice stuff. And noticing requires that you stop and that you ask questions. You look at somebody and you think they're an impulsive, hyperactive kind of person, and you see that as a negative. But if you see it from their perspective, if you begin to ask what is going on for them and what's not going on for them, you begin to see they can see what they're doing as spontaneous. Everything is new. I'm ready for the next thing. Seeing a person as inattentive or spontaneous are two completely different ways of seeing a person. She says mindfulness is our way of engaging with life in a way that transforms life because we care to take note. My Aunt Ninny, I've told you about my Aunt Ninny, and I want to close with a thought, but I want to tell this story to help me get there. And I'm going to invite the band to come on up while I'm telling this story. Some of you remember my Aunt Ninny. She was 94 years old, right? My Aunt Ninny, my wife and I moved in with Aunt Ninny because her daughter, Mary Ellen McCain, she was Mary Ellen Davis, she became Mary Ellen McCain. She was 79 years old, and she got remarried at 79. And so my aunt needed someone to live with her. She was 94, and we moved in with Aunt Ninny, and she was this wonderful little woman who never got a car, never drove, always rode with people. And I always was worried about this. I always wondered, why is it that you'll ride with people? She said, I would never drive a car. Most people in a car don't even know what they're doing, and they're trying to navigate this steel box that could kill people, and they're navigating in a narrow lane, and nobody's paying attention. And this was before, of course, cell phones, right? So I'd say, well, Aunt Ninny, why is it then you're willing to ride with somebody who drives that? And that's when I realized what a backseat driver she was, because she had mastered this skill of telling others how to drive. But Aunt Ninny had this wonderful thing. She'd always say, come grow old with me, the best is yet to be. And then she'd always snap back and say, whoever said that never lived to be 94 years old. But she would take and she would walk down to the end of I believe it was Colonial Country Club Court, turn on Colonial Drive, disappear, walk a mile to the bus stop, ride down to Stripling's downtown. Some of you might remember where Stripling's was downtown. She'd take the escalator downstairs, get 2 boxes of candy, ride back up, backed on the bus. That's all she did. Came back. It took a couple of hours for this thing to happen. Why 2 boxes, we asked her once. One was for the next week or so worth of supper, because she ate candy, drank milk, and that was pretty much her supper. The other was because she shared it on the way home on the bus. She just gave the chocolates away. Her daughter was the complete opposite. Mary Ellen Davis was one of the meanest, prejudiced, racist, angry people I'd ever known. But growing up with her was so much fun because she had the most exceptional belly laugh, that if we could get her laughing, she would just start rolling, and the rest of us couldn't stop laughing at her infectious laugh. But if you got her going on something, she had nothing positive to say about it. I once remembered running into somebody at a conference in Minnesota years ago. My Aunt Ninny my Aunt Mary Ellen had married and remarried, and she was living out in the Pampa area of Texas. Turns out this presenter who was at this Minnesota conference was from Pampa, Texas, but didn't know my aunt. I said, you probably wouldn't know her. I mean, Pampa's got 10,000 people or so, but you probably still wouldn't know her. And she said, well, I might. And I said, no, honestly, you wouldn't want to know her because she's kind of mean-spirited. And she said, Mary Ellen McCain? She had a reputation. And as she was getting older and as she was dying, now Stan is here, and my brother Michael, my brother and Stan are partners, and Michael spent so much time with Aunt Mary Ellen. He really took a lot of care of her, and Stan was probably there for some of that as well. And in her final days and her final weeks and whatnot, she was in the hospital. I think she was mostly living off of gin and candy herself. I mean, she just was a bitter spirit. She just was. It was difficult to be around. And I had to go visit her. Michael wasn't there that week and hadn't been a while, and she'd been in the hospital, and I thought, well, maybe I need to visit her, but I thought, how am I going to approach her? I mean, she really could be pretty mean. And I just decided to try something different, to just see if I couldn't be present in a different way, maybe create something else. And so I took my ukulele and I put on a collar. But she knew I was a minister. Years and years earlier, when she hadn't gotten really ill, she used to talk about she would love to have seen me at First Presbyterian, because that's where she and Aunt Ninny went to church when she went. She would love to see Linda and I there. And so I put on a collar. And when I showed up, of course, I didn't know exactly what room she was in, but I had got to the top, to the hospital floor, and it didn't take long, because I looked down one of the hall, and there was this crowd of about 6 or 7 nurses, nurse aide, medical staff, and they were all bustling around one of these medical carts, and they were all pointing angrily to a room at the hospital, one of the rooms, and I thought, well, that's where my Aunt Mary Ellen is. And so I went down there, and sure enough, they said, are you a relative of Mary Ellen McCain's? And I said, well, yeah, I'm one of her great nephews. And they said, well, good. Did you come to perform an exorcism? And I said, no, I just really came to maybe sing a song. And they just kind of looked at me and said, whatever. And so I took it in there. And I'm not going to tell you what Aunt Mary Ellen said to me, because I can't repeat it in public. But as I walked in and she saw the collar, basically she said, oh my God, you're not going to pray for me, are you? And I smiled and I said, no, I'm going to sing for you. And she said, oh, well, Jesus. And then she said a whole bunch of other stuff. But I didn't play a song. Now, my Aunt Mary Ellen loved gathering with family and friends. We loved gathering at the house on Christmas time with my uncles, and they all sang songs, and she loved it too. And I thought maybe this would break some kind of the shell. And so I started singing. I sang a very rude, crude, socially unacceptable song that I learned in Scotland when I was at the International Fringe Festival. And it so took her by surprise, she just stared at me and didn't say a word. But as I continued to add these bizarre verses that this song includes, she began to kind of crack a smile. You can almost see a bit of a sparkle in her eye. And she let out a surprising, spontaneous one of those belly laughs. And I just kind of smiled and didn't want to push my luck, so I just kept on with the song, and a couple of the nurses had come in and listened. We were all kind of laughing. And afterwards, she had actually taken the pill, hadn't even given a second thought. She'd taken the medicine and taken a sleep aid, and it was peaceful. And the nursing staff afterwards was like, thank you so much. Can you come back tomorrow morning? And I was like, I didn't. And the next day, honestly, I'm sure she was back to being much of how she'd always been. But something changed. Do you know what changed? The nursing staff didn't see her the same way that they used to, because all they saw was a difficult, belligerent patient that they couldn't seem to get to cooperate with their way of doing things. And sure, frustrating as all get out. Now they saw that she laughed. Now they saw that she had family. Now they saw a different picture entirely. It did not take that much to transform the world around that room. All it took was a little Sabbath time, a little opportunity to mindfully take note. And we can do that in every encounter we have. Even as I spoke of white supremacy or Muslims and jihadists, or I mentioned sexual harassment, even as I bring up these things, some of us are repelling, others of us want to jump on a bandwagon. We react at opposite ends out of mindlessness. But by taking a chance, by practicing Sabbath time in all of our moments, go ahead, take a day off, get some rest. That's not really Sabbath. Sabbath challenges the prevailing culture of destruction. Always. Sabbath is about connecting to God. It challenges the prevailing culture of destruction. I thought to myself here, what can I do that expresses Sabbath mostly for me? And of course, you know me, You'll come join me down here. Or maybe you can't. You know what? I'll come join you up there. And I believe this deeply. I don't know why it's not in the Bible. If you want to feel good, just get a ukulele. So I invited Lauren to come and join me again on the ukulele because I think ukulele is amazing. And if there's a Sabbath, it's always got to have a ukulele around. And some of you know this song and you're welcome. The band didn't rehearse. It's like we're in our living room. It's like we're in a hospital room trying to sit down and sing a song together. We'll see how it goes. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. Darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. Little darling, the smile's returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. That's pretty easy. You can join in on that. Sun, 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 here it comes. One more time. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since we've been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. It's all right. Thanks, Lauren. So before the band finishes up with their final song, just this last thought as we think about it. Life, you know, we need crustiness. We need that. We need to protect ourselves. We sort of wear that ice shell sometimes, and we all do it. We all live mindlessly. That's understandable. And sometimes we need that. We even need a little mindlessness. But Sabbath is that invitation that every moment we have a chance to change the world by changing how we see it, by changing how we start to take note of it. That's why Sabbath is so important. Amen.
I'm gonna wash the dust off my soul. I'm gonna listen to some rock and roll. No cares, come what may, I'm making a beautiful day. I'm gonna drive my car in to the sea. Swim out far, 'cause I believe that the waves will wash the gray away. I'm making a beautiful day. But let me hear you say, ooh, ooh, my, my. I'm learning to fly. Hey, hey, what's that you say? Let's not forget we're alive. We're gonna climb that hill behind my house, see what this place is all about. From above it all, you can't help but say it's gonna be a beautiful day. It's gonna be a beautiful day. Let me hear you say, ooh, ooh, my, my. I'm learning to fly. Hey, hey, what's that you say? Let's not forget we're alive. Gonna turn my enemies into friends. Was broken yet stronger when it mends. When we all come together, this song will play. We'll sing, it's a beautiful day. Yes, it's gonna be my beautiful day. Ooh, ooh, my, my. I'm learning to fly. Hey, hey, what's that you say? Let's not forget we're alive. We're alive.
So let's all stand. Take somebody's hand beside you, please. We'll have a blessing. Stick around, sing, have some more coffee, visit with one another. It's easy to be like those Pharisees who probably looked at Jesus at that point when he was doing something and just turn instead of asking, why would he be doing that on this day? Instead of simply taking note. How easy it is for us to be mindless. Let's pray. Holy One, open our hearts, inspire us with moments of surprise. And where the surprise doesn't turn us or challenge us, may we learn to practice a little more noticing. The kind of notice that begins to question our own perspective on things, that we begin to change the world by changing ourselves. Bless us as we go from this place. We pray in the name of the one in whom we live and move and have our very ground of being. Amen.
I am open, I am willing, for to be homeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. Just lift me up to the light of change. Hallelujah.
for this love I feel inside. I'm gonna sing hallelujah, let music be your guide, oh, your guide. I'm gonna sing hallelujah, 'cause I'm grateful. I wanna sing right now. Oh yeah, all right. Hey, I wanna sing all night long. All right, I'm gonna sing it. Yeah, all night. Oh yeah.
Hallelujah.
All right.
Hallelujah.
Oh, this feeling, everything. Oh yeah. Come on and sing. Come on and sing. Oh yeah. Come on and sing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. I'm so thankful for this feeling, that music. Oh, that music. That music brings.